everyone, my name is Samantha Peterson. I'm the marketing manager here at RM Young Company, and today I am excited to introduce RJ Evans, a retired storm chaser with decades of hands-on experience in severe weather observation. From building one of the first personal mobile mesonets in 1999 to working alongside leading forecasters and scientists, he brings a unique field-tested perspective on weather instrumentation. RJ, thank you so much for joining me. I've really been looking forward to chatting with you.
Glad to be here.
Can we start by just kind of telling me a little bit about your journey in weather and storm chasing?
Well, I was a weather weenie as a child. And in fact, when I was about 3.5 years old. And I believe this was back in about 1964, 65, somewhere in there. There was a tornado outbreak up in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And I remember my mother hurrying us toward our basement, and our basement was flooded. So we had to run next door in the middle of the storm to go to the neighbor's basement. And it was at that point, I guess, that imprinted on my psyche. And after that, I just was fascinated by it. And on and off throughout my younger years, I pursued everything that was weather that I could get my hands on, including old Difax maps.
That's very cool. So where did you start your storm chasing journey? How did it come about from
Well,
there?
yeah, back in the early '80s, shortly after I was married, my wife and I really got into running around. Well, initially we ran around in the UP of Michigan, of all places. It chased thunderstorms up there, which is really not a really good place to do that. But and then we ended up out in Arizona after living in Seattle for a few years. Started chasing monsoon thunderstorms and shooting lightning pictures on film. And then shortly thereafter, moving around the country, my wife being an electrical engineer, she's a brilliant woman, kind of got hooked on it. And at some point I decided I wanted to change careers from being a professional musician and broadcaster. I wanted to become a meteorologist. So I headed off to the University of Oklahoma, and the math kicked my butt. All of my meteorologist friends were looking at me going, "You can do it, RJ, you can do it." And I kept saying, "No, I can't do it. I can't do it." And "Yes, you can." "No, you can't." Anyway, long story short, I said, "No, I can't do it." I dropped out. But I've been chasing. I started chasing back in '80s. And then, of course, it was just prior to the release of the movie Twister that I had started thinking about going to the University of Oklahoma, and then the movie Twister came out, and I was like, "Oh boy, okay, this made my decision." It just sucked me in, and I have never once regretted anything that I've ever done with it. So,
That's amazing. What is the most memorable moment you've had while storm chasing?
oh, good grief. Uh, you know, I've chased all over the plains, from the Dakotas all the way south into extreme southwest Texas and southeast New Mexico. I started out with Cloud9 Tours. Charles Edwards was the oldest at the time. It was became the oldest and storm chase tour company in the country. And I chased with Charles as one of the guides for several years. I can't really pin down one in particular event. I can say that if there is one that stands out a little more than others, it would have to be May 3rd, 1999. I was chasing with Charles Edwards at the time. This was outside of the tours at the time, and he was trying to place what's known as the Dillo-Cam. It was actually a device that would record wind speed and also video, hopefully from within inside a tornado. And May 3rd, 1999 produced for us, we saw 14 tornadoes off of 3 storms within a very short period of time, and had placed a Dillo-Cam, tried to place it in front of the tornado that hit just I'm trying to remember the name of the town, but it was southwest of Oklahoma City, and eventually that particular storm supercell produced a satellite tornado around a wedge tornado. It was a fantastic event. That would have to be that. Some of the more dangerous chasing that we had done was at night. This is prior to having access to the type of data that you have today while you're remotely. This is the early onset of cell phones and the ability to get data. And so you were chasing via radar scans whenever you could get them. Yeah, there were some things that you look at and you go, what were we thinking? But ultimately, there's nothing like witnessing the power of nature and understanding how insignificant we are in relation to it. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Were you collecting weather data at the time?
During the May 3rd, 1999, no, we were actually in the process of getting ready to build the personal mobile mesonet project. The PMMP project is what it was called, and I just purchased the 1999 Dodge Durango. Prior to that, I was chasing in a Ford F-150 with a cap on. In fact, we chased Hurricane George. Matt Biddle at the time, myself, Charles, Matt Biddle. And Jerry Straka, Dr. Jerry Straka at the time had several people. I'm trying to remember Al's last name now. It's been so long. Anyway, 98, we chased. I had an anemometer on it at the time. It was a Maxim setup that I put on a mast that I actually lifted up into the air manually, of course, and we would record wind speed, but not direction or anything. The mobile mesonet came about in 99 after the May 3rd, and it was quite the project.
Can you tell me about it?
Well, my wife being an engineer and me, of course, being ridiculously addicted to storm chasing, to storms, to weather in general. And the fact that a lot of folks that I knew worked at NSSL and were part of Project Vortex and several of the other studies. I said, why is it that storm chasers don't have the ability to actually contribute to this? What would it be like if we could put instrumentation on vehicles of storm chasers at a fairly reasonable price and actually be able to duplicate scientifically accurately what the mesonets do when they're doing a study. Mm-hmm. And so my wife being an engineer, she did the software, I did the hardware, and the first thing I went to was RM Young, and I went there specifically because of the reputation that they had with National Severe Storms Lab, as well as DuPage University and various other schools of meteorology around the country. And it was a no-brainer. The hard part was understanding the mechanics of implementing that. The equipment made it easy. The hard part was understanding things like, vectoring, being able to get wind speed and direction while in motion. My wife, fortunately, being the engineer that she is, she took on the task, and we both made errors in our judgment. But the other thing was to get the equipment out of the Bernoulli effect, or the ability for the air to be compressed as it goes up over the windshield, get it up high enough where it's not being affected by that. We were able to successfully do that. So, and in fact, there's a great anecdote about that. I was chasing a hurricane. I had met a friend of mine who was with Josh Werman in one of the Dows down in, I believe it was Louisiana at the time. I don't remember exactly, but sitting, within a few feet on an airfield, my vehicle, the Durango versus the Dow and their instrumentation. And poor Josh couldn't figure out for the life of him how I was getting accurate readings. So he would always stare at it. But the fact is that we did get accurate readings, and at some point we actually were able to contribute. We set up an FTP server on my home computer, and I gave access to my friends and forecasters at the Storm Prediction Center, so they could access the data while we were out and about, and we would upload as often as we could. Keep in mind, is once again early cell technology. So what we're doing is we're hoping we get a good connection wherever we're at, and we're hoping that we can the data is being accurately transmitted and received. And we did find out that they did occasionally use that data. We let them know when we were going out, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, all I can say is the personal mobile mesonet project was just a screaming success. The best thing we could possibly do is find ways of generating more data in real time, utilizing chasers, but making it so that it's affordable and that it's practical. If we can't do that, then I don't see us making any strides in better forecasting outside of what AI is now trying to provide. Data is so important. And RM Young for us at the time, and even now with the response one that I have here at the house, it's still an absolute essential part of not just storm chasing, but understanding climate, understanding weather, and also understanding the sociological effects of all of this on the human species. We got to Oklahoma and got into school and started working with Charles on the storm chase tours. Started chasing with him initially, him and Matt Biddle. Somebody came up to me one day and said, "You're in." And I said, "What? What do you mean?" Apparently, Charles was a member of what's known as the Chase Forecast Discussion Group. This was a private group. You had to be nominated to it. The group consisted of members from the National Severe Storms Lab, the Storm Prediction Center, climatologists, meteorologists at forecast centers, different forecast offices, hardcore chasers. And you had to be nominated, you had to be voted in. And apparently I had proven myself in some way. I don't know. I mean, I at the time I was an early pattern chaser. I mean, I knew some of the meteorology, but I wasn't quite up on a lot of the more detailed aspects of forecasting that really I learned over the years that helped me become a better chaser, a better forecaster. So here I was, a member of this group, and I'm like, wow, I don't belong here. What's going on? But you know what? I was embraced. I was given a lot by some incredible people. I was given a lot by Jim Ledoux, Daphne Zaris, Rich Thompson, Roger Edwards, Bobby Prentice, Chuck Doswell, Gene Roden, another great chaser, actually, who eventually, when I started an internet radio station, Gene and I put together a show called High Instability that eventually was hosted by Gene and by Chuck Doswell. It's hard to really explain how exciting all of that was to be a member of that group. I got out of chasing around 2010. I had my last chase around then. Part of the reason I chased too was because being a professional photographer, for me, it was important to get out and see the plains, to be a part of nature, to actually, do other things while I was out there. But it became clogged and I had to get out. I can't speak highly enough, though, of all of those people.
That's fantastic. And it's so cool that you were able to find something that brought you that much life, finding the thing
They're
that
they,
brings the
these are incredible people. Um, when we started High Instability, the radio program, Gene came up with the tagline, "This ain't your daddy's weather radio," and it wasn't. We interviewed some of the Gene and Chuck and I interviewed some of the greats of meteorology. We did at least a couple hundred shows, and they were phenomenal.
So you quit storm chasing in around 2010, you said, right? So
Yeah.
where did you go from there?
Well, I was still a weather weenie. The Durango had well over 162,000 miles on it when I sold it. And I'd retired the RM Young equipment because it was it was reliable. Let me put it this way: the 05 103 wind anemometer was put up with so much. I mean, we were in hail cores, sometimes baseball, softball size hail cores, and it would take a beating. Fortunately, most of the time I didn't lose the props on it. We put hail cages on the gill plate and radiation shield that was held the temperature humidity sensors inside, one over the pressure sensor. When I quit, I was a bit sad about it. So when I walked away from it, I decided, we still did the weather radio show. We did High Instability up until I shut the station down in late 2012, early 2013. After that, I became an armchair chaser. I spent a lot of time just looking at data, doing forecasts. I did a lot of support, basically nowcasting for my friend Bobby Prentice and other folks. And then I got a bug up my butt after my wife and I decided to move to Florida. And I was like, oh, well, see, I used to chase hurricanes too. So I'm like, what are we going to do? All right. So I decided, well, I haven't got enough money to go do what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and buy a Davis weather instrument. There's nothing wrong with Davis. Don't get me wrong. They do a fine job at the price that they're at, but they're not a scientific instrument, in my estimation. And so I said, after having that there for a couple of years, I've got to find an alternative. So I went back and I went back to RM Young and I started poking around. And instead of going with the 05 103 or, for the wind measurements and buying separate stuff, I came across Response One and I went, oh, hello, ultrasonic wind speed and temperature, humidity, and pressure all in one instrument. And I went, and I looked at my wife. I said, honey, can I have a budget? Well, she said yes. But what really intrigued both of us was, and this is the same thing we came across with RM Young earlier in the equipment that we purchased: reliability, easy as pie to code for it. Really is. The documentation is incredibly precise, incredibly easy to understand, even for a dummy like me. Trust me, my wife's the genius. I'm the dummy. And once again, it's durability. It can take what the weather has to offer, what it has to dish out, good, bad, or otherwise. I'm limited here as far as the placement. Obviously, I cannot get myself to 3 meters where I would which is ideally where I should be for my instrumentation there. And I can't do the same with my rain bucket, my tilting rain bucket. By the way, I love your rain bucket. Yes, I do. I just do. But the reality is it's there, and I actually solar power it. I put together my own controller and my own panel, and we went ahead and wired it in, and it's been nothing short of incredible. It's reliable day in, day out. I refuse to use anything other than RM Young. You guys were so personable, and you still are. You're personable. You make things easy for someone to approach and say, hey, how do we do this? I can't say enough about you. I can't.
Oh, well, thank you. And that is one of our goals to we want to always be easy to do business with and be a face instead of, an automated system. And that's really important to us. When you reflect back on your decades of involvement with weather, what stands out the most? What is something that you like your biggest takeaway from your career or that you would want to share with other people?
I'm reminded of a question I'd asked Chuck Doswell, Dr. Charles A. Doswell III. We were going to do a documentary with him a long time ago. I was going to do something. Gene Roden and I were trying to put something together along with Roger Edwards and Daphne Zaris and Jim Ledoux. And well, anyway, we put Chuck out in a field in a lounge chair. I don't know if you've ever seen this picture or not, but I took my lazy boy out to the field. We put it there along with a end table and a lamp and had him put his feet up, and he's in his field of flowers up to here, and we're taking some still shots along with asking, shooting video and asking him a question. And one of the things we asked him was, what did storm chasing mean to him? And he cried. He couldn't speak. My takeaway from my friendship with that guy, my best friend, was the same that I feel today. There is absolutely nothing more incredible than the nature, and in particular, the atmosphere, the thing that makes it possible for us to survive, to live day to day. It is also the most incredibly humbling thing you could ever experience. It can give life and it can take it away. It can inspire. It can move you. It can give you goose pumples. Yes, pumples, goose pumples. It can make you laugh. It can make you cry. And it always, now, since I lost my friend, it always makes me think of Charles. That's what it means to me. That's what I take with me every single day.
That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for letting us be a small part of your story.
Oh, wait a minute. Don't ever, I want to say this seriously. Don't ever think that RM Young is not a big part of this story, because RM Young is what made this story happen. And that's I'm not lying about that. This is to anybody out there considering this company. I say this from my heart. They made a lot of what my wife and I have accomplished as far as weather, as far as our understanding and our learning, as far as being a part of the scientific community, even though we're amateur scientists. RM Young made it all possible. And I can't thank RM Young enough.